Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yonta pravishya mama vachamimam prasuptan sanjeevayata kila shakti dhara svadhamna anyamscha hasta charana shravana tvagadin प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं कथाञ्चन स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्करं सुकरं भवेत् विस्मृते विपरीतं स्यात् श्रीचैतन्य नमामि तम्. Hare Krishna. It gives me great happiness to be back with all of you once again. Today is the third session we are going to have on our Bhagavad Gita classes. We have spent the first two sessions on the first chapter of the Gita. How many of you are coming first time for these classes? Wow, many of you. Okay, fine. So I'll give a summary of the first chapter so that you know where we are. I'll just take 2 minutes to explain. Okay, I'll also need a sheet of the second chapter verses. Yeah. Okay. So we spent 2 sessions on the first chapter of the Gita. So what is the first chapter of the Gita? It's about Arjuna having doubts, which is the archetypal spiritual seeker. And the rest of the Gita is answers to Arjuna's 5 questions that he asks and his confusion. So the entire summary of the first chapter, if you want to explain the first chapter to some of your friends who haven't been here, or you want to also understand for yourself, you can remember it with an acronym, DOUBT. D-O-U-B-T. What does the first D stand for? Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan. So the first few verses of the first chapter speak about the character of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, where diplomacy and duplicity is exposed. And we discussed in great length how if our inside and outside is not congruent, how our inside will take revenge and how we will be exposed at some point of time. That was a detailed discussion in the first class. So that is the first topic of the first chapter. D for Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana's duplicitous behavior. Then the second topic there is O. O stands for ominous results. So the Gita reveals how Pandavas will emerge victorious because of the signs of auspiciousness that is explained in great detail. So that was also one of the topics. And then U stands for uncertainty. Arjuna then starts expressing his uncertainty about fighting the war. And he has never lost a battle in his life. And before the most important war of his life, he says, I can't fight. It's like, somebody's always been cracking all exams, all the 10th standard, 12th standard, all exams is getting 100 out of 100. And just before the main exam, he says, my pen, I can't lift my pen, I can't write. So Arjuna is not able to lift his bow. So what has gone wrong? Uncertainty. And then B for bewilderment due to bodily relationships. He feels completely vulnerable. We discussed in great length about being vulnerable, the strength of being vulnerable, being authentic. And it's okay to be not perfect. It's okay to cry. Arjuna, the greatest warrior who's never lost a battle, is completely broken down. And then we discussed how happiness, it's not that there is something wrong with you if you're unhappy. This was one of the topics we discussed last time in great detail. It's okay to be unhappy, you're normal. You don't have to be happy all the time. We are not looking for some stimulation. So that was the fourth topic of the first chapter. And the last is T. Traditions and sin. We discussed the power of traditions, how traditions have they carry a lot of strength, and when over a period of many generations, when some practices are followed, how it leaves behind a legacy. So these are the 5 topics discussed, and Arjuna has expressed his inability to fight the war, and he gives up. And now we are going to start second chapter, which is where entire Bhagavad Gita is going to be summarized in this chapter. So if you attend the second chapter, it's like you know the Gita. There are 72 verses, almost double of what you got in the first chapter. And second chapter is the most fascinating because it gives us an introduction to spiritual life. Arjuna is a great, Krishna is a great master teacher. You will not find a better teacher like him. And the way he removes Arjuna's doubts is amazing. So we are going to discuss all of that, but we'll go slow because I was talking to Meghna a few days ago. She said, let us have it in our own course. No need to hurry up. So I'm going to discuss, I'm also first going to give a summary of the second chapter so that, I don't know when we'll finish the second chapter. But before all of that, the second chapter is based on certain principles. So to understand that, I want to do an interactive exercise with you first. All of you have access to writing. If you don't have a paper and pen to write, you can write on your phone. Or ideally, on the paper and pen would be best. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Hare Krishna. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Now listen to me carefully. Because many of you are coming first time, I have explained the concept of journal writing in the first 2 classes. And there is a science. Journal writing is a very big science. And this is not a class on journal writing, but I need to explain to you how journal writing is a tool to connect to yourself. And I have learned through trial and error and through the hard way, certain techniques by which journal writing can be very effective. You don't have to go through your own discovery. No need to reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to share with you a few techniques. I've already shared. One technique is called free writing. Free writing means when I say start, do you have kartals or something here? So I'm going to play the kartal, Ting. So that's when you're going to start writing. So till I again play the kartal, your pen is not going to stop. Is that clear? That's called free writing. You'll keep writing. You'll say, but what to write? What if I go blank? Then you write that. You write you are going blank. I'm going blank. I don't know why. This is good. No. This is better. Yeah. So I'll play the kartals. So then you are going to write random. But I'll give you a question and what you write will be an answer to that question. Even if it's not the perfect answer, even if it's not the exact answer, but just keep writing. Because once you stop writing, your head will be active. And once you keep writing, it's your heart. Somewhere you will touch your heart. And spiritual life is not head knowledge. Although Bhagavad Gita, a lot of knowledge is given, ultimately, spiritual practices are all about the heart. Many of us mistake spiritual practices to be head knowledge. There is something called as heart knowledge. To access the heart, journal writing is one of the ways. So I'm going to give you 3-minute exercises and you're going to quickly answer 2 questions. Is that okay? And you're going to follow what is called as a free writing. So now as soon as you hear this question, some of you may get shocked and you may not want to write which is reasonable, because one of the worst things that can happen to us is, others know about us. We don't trust people. So that's okay. So what we are going to do is, I want to assure you, nobody is going to read what you write. In fact, at the end of today's class, you will be given time to read it and then tear it also, if you want. Because sometimes, the questions can be challenging, but then unless you answer those questions to yourself, you can't make inroads in your spiritual practices. So therefore, I want to assure you, nobody is going to read them and you don't have to share it with anyone else. This is just for your own consumption. Okay? Is that clear? That's a disclaimer. So the first question, before you answer, I want to ask you, have all of you in your life ever gone through an uncomfortable situation? Painful situations? Extreme challenges? Some big difficulties? Everybody here? Good. So we're all human. We're all normal. So, first question is, write about either 1 or 2 or 3 or as many, or if you want to elaborate on 1, it's okay. But any uncomfortable, difficult or challenging situation in your life which you feel was really difficult for you. The time starts now. If you go blank, write about the second one, write about the third one, or elaborate on the first one. Hare Krishna. Actually, this is a 10-minute exercise, but we just wanted to give you a sample of what it is. So, if you do this sincerely for half an hour, if you keep an alarm for half an hour and you write, you will see a lot of therapeutic effect. You will see you're getting a lot of clarity also, because you're going to access some part of you which will reveal to you how to navigate through this world with grace and dignity. So now that you know what you've written, you can read it once and then you start answering the second question which I'm going to give you now. The second question is, okay, you can just read it once and then I'll tell you the second question. Just read what you've written. Thank you. So all of you have read it, right? So now, this is the most important question. What are the 3 or 5 or 6 good things that have happened after this, what you've written? Or what do you think are the good things that would happen because of this? Or what are the lessons you have learned from this? Or how you could make your life better because of this? Or how your life has become better because of this? Is that clear? Is the question clear? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, and my sincere apologies if it was a little uncomfortable. But the benefits are immense of doing what you did just now. We all go through tragedies. We all are broken in some way. But in all our social gatherings, we present the best side of ourselves. And we see the best version of the others, which is good. At the same time, it can be overwhelming for some of us because we see the best of others, but we know how broken we are from within. So, then what happens is, we find it very painful. If only we were all more authentic and more candid and more vulnerable, the world would be a much better place. So, this is one exercise. Now, based on what you've written, and I'm sure you also discovered some good things that have happened because of what you've gone through, I want to ask you one question. What do you think is the way? Because most people, I won't say most, many people in life, they don't learn lessons from their tragedies. They don't move forward. There are many people who go on a downward spiral after they go through some major tragedy. So how do you think we can ensure that we decipher lessons from the difficulties we go through? What do you think helps us shine after what we go through? How can we become like a gold that goes through fire? The gold shines, right? So how do we ensure, or what do you think will help in difficulties helping us grow and evolve? The pressure? Yes, but many of us may falter. So what do you think we could do to help us grow after the tragedies that we go through?
Being emotionally and mentally strong and stable.
Being emotionally strong. How do we do that? How do we become strong?
Have more faith,
Letting
and
go.
accept.
Just 1 second. Yeah, you have more?
Have more faith and accept like what has happened, and then
Acceptance. I'm hearing the word acceptance. This is the most powerful. In fact, my book, Mind Your Mind, the middle section, I think more than 100 pages is on acceptance. Acceptance is an amazing, amazing principle, which is like the number 1 principle for overcoming setbacks. Thank you. We'll elaborate on it more in our future sessions. But anything else that can help us move forward?
Letting go.
Letting go, release. What else? And how do we release? What are the different ways we could release? One is through journaling. Talk it out. What else? Exercise. Endorphins. Release more endorphins. Go for jogging, workout. Cry. Have a good cry. Like people say, have a good laugh. You can also have a good cry. Shopping. See, that is what happens. There is a danger here. As we think we are releasing, we may also be in denial. We may enter into a denial mode. Sometimes हम लोग denial mode में भी जा सकते हैं. And denial is the worst kind of lie. It's the biggest cheating because that is a lie we speak to ourselves. So, नहीं, सब अच्छा है, positive, everything is positive. It can be disastrous. Acceptance is the foundation. Now, I'll give an example. Recently, Chandrayaan-3 was a big success. Now, Chandrayaan-2 failed. So, who was the director of Chandrayaan-2? Dr. Shivan. Now, when Dr. Shivan was asked, how do you feel about the Chandrayaan-3 success? He was gracious. He said, it's a great thing and, we are happy. Now, if I was Dr. Shivan, Chandrayaan-3 success, a large part of me would be happy, but some part of me would be sad. Some part of me would be sad because, I could have been as the part of the winning team. I failed. Of course, if a large part of me is sad and some small part of me is happy because of some social pretense, then I need help. I need professional help. I'm wired wrongly. I'm talking about a normal human being. A large part of me would be happy, to be honest. If I was in Dr. Shivan's place, some part of me would be sad. And I have two choices. One is to say, no, I'm very happy. I have no problem. I'm actually very happy. So that means either I'm very evolved, spiritually realized, or I'm in denial. It's only human to be sad. And when you accept it and drink that halal poison which Lord Shiva drank, जहर मरने के लिए थोड़ा सा, पर जिंदा रहने के लिए बहुत पीना पड़ता है. तो ये एक जहर है थोड़ा. Sachin Tendulkar was in the Indian team that entered the finals of the World Cup in 2011. And he was playing in Mumbai, his hometown, home city. He is the heartthrob of all Indians and everybody loves him. He is the nation's heartbeat and he's Bharat Ratna. And he scored 99 centuries. India is in the final of the World Cup. What a great occasion to score your 100th century and help India win the World Cup. And what happened? Sachin Tendulkar got out, I think in the early. And India was in a very tricky situation, right? Of course, India went on to win the World Cup, that's another story. But when he walked to the pavilion back, he must have been devastated. And when India won the World Cup, he was jubilant. But if I was Sachin Tendulkar, to be honest, I would be so happy we won the World Cup. But some part of me would be sad that I failed when I could have savored this moment. So again, if I say, no, I'm very happy, that means either I'm spiritually very evolved or I'm in denial. So we haven't yet reached there. So where we are, if you don't have to go and tell the whole world, Dr. Shivan doesn't have to go and tell the whole world, some part of me is sad. No, be honest to yourself, to your loved one, or to your own self at least, through journaling. Accept who you are. Become peaceful. You're all right. There's nothing wrong with you. So acceptance is one of the most important principles for moving forward after tragedies and pain and setbacks in life. Having said this, now we will enter the second chapter because we're in a situation where Arjuna is devastated. He is totally confused because he's never lost a battle and now he doesn't want to fight. See, a warrior, you have seen a boxing match. So before the actual match, the two boxers, what do? Are they standing or do they sit down? You want to fight with someone, you stand up. That is the first thing you do. If I want to fight with you, I'll first stand. And Arjuna, the end of the first chapter, he sits on the chariot with his hand on his head. That means the fight is not going to happen. So then what happens is the second chapter. Because Arjuna has exhausted all his arguments. He has given 5 reasons for not fighting the war. He said, traditions will be destroyed, I'll be committing sins, I can't enjoy if I win this war. All the different things he says. And now he is speechless. Now Krishna is going to speak. So what Krishna speaks is the second chapter, and I'll summarize the second chapter in a couple of minutes so that for future classes also you can know. You can remember the second chapter with an acronym called Gita. Gita. This is an acronym. If anybody asks you, you went for a Bhagavad Gita class today on a Saturday evening? You could have done so many other things. So what did you get there? What did you learn there? So you can tell that person, this is what I learned. The summary of the second chapter of the Gita, that is Gita. Gita. The first 10 verses reveal the importance of Guru. The G in this Gita stands for Guru. Arjuna accepts Krishna as Guru. My teacher, he says, Krishna, I'm tired of all these arguments and analysis and enough. I just surrender. Enough of this friendly banter, friendly discussions. Bahut ho gaya. Now you give me clarity. I don't accept. Now I don't want to have a friendly talk with you. I want to have serious talk. Guide me. So guide and Guru is the first topic of the second chapter, the first 10 verses. And then begins a very interesting discussion, which we will take up next time in detail. Gita, I stands for identity. From text number 11 to 30, the 20 verses of this chapter give a profound understanding of who am I. Hum kaun hai? So Krishna explains to Arjuna how we are not this body. You are not what you are seeing in the mirror. That's not you. That's your body. Just like a car has a driver who maneuvers the car, similarly this body has a driver, which is called the soul, the Atma. So Krishna speaks in detail about the Atma, the soul, and convinces Arjuna that you're not killing anyone because their body is anyway going to die and the person, the real I, is not going to die. So identity is going to be explained in 20 verses, 11 to 30. And then another 23 verses, 31 to 53 almost, is the third topic, which is T, which stands for 2 duties. Krishna is going to speak how, if you really want to be happy, Arjuna, you have to do 2 duties. All of us have 2 duties which we need to perform in our lives. One is called Swadharma. Swadharma means which is according to your nature. Like Arjuna's nature is a fighter, he's a Kshatriya warrior. And he tells Krishna, you know what? I don't want to fight. I want to be a beggar. I want to be a sadhu. I want to go to the forest and beg and be a sadhu, non-violent sadhu. And Krishna says, that is ridiculous. You can't do that. You are a warrior. It's your swadharma to fight for justice. In fact, what would have happened if Arjuna had given up the war and he had gone to the forest, and there he would have picked up some small altercation with someone and he would have killed that person? Because fighting and management and all that is his nature. In fact, in the Gita, Krishna explains, Nigraham kim karishyasi, repression cannot accomplish anything. So we have to do our swadharma. That is one duty. And the second duty is called Sanatan Dharma, which is the duty of the soul, the real I, which all of us have to do, which is connect with something superior to us, something greater than us, which is God, Krishna, force, universe, consciousness, whatever you call it. And this is going to be explained in great detail in the second chapter, the 2 duties. And finally, the last one, last 18 verses is very interesting. 54th verse to 72 is the A in the Gita, which stands for an interesting word, in Sanskrit word, Atmaram. You know what does it mean, Atmaram? Self-satisfied. So this is a section where Krishna says, Arjuna, just be self-satisfied. Forget this war, forget what's happening on the external front. There are certain things if you do, you will be under se mast Ram. Bahar kuch bhi chale. Actually, isn't that what we all want? We want to be like a boat which is in the water, but we don't want the water to enter the boat. Because we can't avoid rains in the rainy season. But we want an umbrella which we can carry. So we want to be like a lotus. Krishna says, Padma Patra Ivambasa, be a lotus in the kitchen. So this world we can't change, but we can do something. So that's Atma Ram. So to summarize, the second chapter is Gita. G for Guru. Then identity and two duties. What are the two duties? Swadharma and Sanatana Dharma. And A is for Atmaram. So now we will start with the first 10 verses today. We'll just briefly cover that. So you can, for those of you who are new, the system we follow is I chant the verse, you repeat after me, and one of you reads the translations. Who will read the translations today? You can read loudly, okay? So you please repeat after me the first verse. Sanjay Uvacha Tam Tata Kripaya Vishtham Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana.
Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna spoke the following words.
Generally, if your friend is very depressed and is crying, you would give him consoling words. But it's interesting to see Arjuna's best friend Krishna, he doesn't console him. On the contrary, he says something interesting, which is text number 2 and 3. Please repeat. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. What this means is Shri Bhagavan spoke. Uvacha means spoke. For now, the first time in the Gita, Krishna is going to speak. Okay, what is his first words? Kutastva kashmalam idam Vishame samupastitam Anarya justam asvargyam Akirti Karamarjuna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all benefiting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infinity.
So Krishna's verdict is, come on, what are you doing? Why are you feeling so sad? This is not going to help you. And the next verse is really strong. Text 3. Klebyam masma gamaha partha Netatvai upapadyate Shrudram hridaya dorbalyam Tektvotishta parantapa.
O son of Partha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such pretty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of enemies.
So Krishna says this is degrading impotence. Klebyam is calling him impotent. Actually, for a Kshatriya, this is a great insult. To call him, you are a coward or you are an impotent person, that's like adding insult to injury, like that. It's like he's being shaken. Now, I find a similar section in the Ramayana. See, I read Ramayana more than the Bhagavad Gita. So Ramayana is my favorite book. So many times I have read. And one of the most amazing sections I find is in the Ayodhya Kand, where Ram is being banished and he's going to the forest and he's taking permission of everyone. He first informs, Lakshman is with him, of course, and then he goes to Mother Kaushalya. And then when he speaks to Mother Sita, it's very interesting. Our first reaction is, I want to come with you. And he says, no way, you're not coming to the forest with me. It's very dangerous. And there are wild animals. And they have a beautiful discussion, very intense discussion. And how does Ram finally agree to take her? She just says one sentence and Ram's all arguments is over. She says, I think my father married me to a woman within the guise of a man. Yes, doesn't have the confidence to protect me and take me to the forest. And Ram says, enough argument, you're coming with me. So Sita is not what is presented by the leftist historians. She's a very outspoken lady. In fact, in the Ramayana, only once you'll find Ram scolding Sita. And at least 3 instances I have found where Sita really gives a sauce to Lord Ram. So, why I said this? Yeah, connecting. So that's like, Ram is a Kshatriya. That's like a big blow to the ego. So Krishna is saying, you can't do this. Then follows a very interesting discussion. Because till now, if you see what has happened psychologically, Arjuna was assured. Arjuna didn't want to fight. So he thought if he just gives some word jugglery, if he speaks some things, and if he gives all different arguments, Krishna will agree. But he's surprised because Krishna is not bought his arguments. So now Arjuna is like, "Arey, ye to kaam nahi kiya." So now Arjuna actually breaks down. And he just surrenders. Because till now he was thinking friendly discussion se kaam ho jayega. That's why the next few verses are extremely important. So let's see what Arjuna tells now. Because this is like Arjuna has been cornered. Now Arjuna cannot, he has to just speak his real thing from the heart. So text 4, we can chant. Text 4, please repeat. Arjuna uvacha. Katam bhishmam maham sankhe. Dronam cha madhusudana. Ishubhi pratiyotsyami. Pujaraha varisudana.
Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma or Drona, who are worthy of my worship?
So it's very painful for Arjuna because he's played on the lap of Bhishma. And Drona was his worshipable teacher. And before the Gita, when Arjuna tells Krishna, please take my chariot between the two armies, I just want to see what the people have assembled here. Krishna is so shrewd. Krishna is a master strategist. He deliberately takes Arjuna's chariot directly in front of Bhishma and Drona. He could have taken it in front of Duryodhan and aroused his anger. But Krishna has a plan. He wants the Gita to be spoken. So, Krishna triggers that and just see. And Krishna is always smiling. If you see here also, before Krishna speaks, the first verse, Vishidantam idam vakyam. So actually, in the first chapter we find this verse where Krishna is smiling. It says, "Behold the armies." So Krishna is smiling. So Krishna is always presented as the equipoised person in the Gita. Of course, in the Mahabharata war, he gets upset a few times and he gets emotional because he's seeing his devotees are being affected. But in the Gita, he's equipoised, and he's brought deliberately the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona, and Arjuna is like, and he's looking at them, and his emotions are, he's overwhelmed. And then he says, I think, Krishna, I can't fight with Bhishma and Drona. I can't do this. In fact, one of the reasons why Pandavas won the war is because just before the war began, after Arjuna heard the Gita and was about to fight, Yudhishthira brought his chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona. And everybody got shocked. They thought now Yudhishthira is going to break down and Yudhishthira is going to refuse to fight. And he just got out of his chariot and he walked up to Bhishma and Drona, and everybody was like, what happened to him? And you know what he did? He just went to Bhishma and he offered obeisances. He touched his feet and he said, please give me blessings. You are my teachers, you are my great-grandsire. Bless me. If I am on the right side, let me win. And then both of them blessed. And in fact, Bhishma said, if you hadn't come and taken our blessings, you wouldn't have won the war. Because of your humility, you will win the war. So Dharma, Yudhishthira was on the Dharma side. So now Arjuna is cornered. Arjuna says, I can't fight with Bhishma and Drona. And now let's see what he says. He gives a very outrageous proposal to Krishna. Text 5. Gurun hatvai mahanubhavan Shreyo bhoktum bekshamapi aloke Hatvarta kamamstu guruni eva Bunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdan
It would be better to live in this world by pleading than
by begging.
to live at the cost of lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood.
See, this is very intense for Arjuna. He is faced with the task of killing his teachers. It's not easy. Some of the challenges we go through, we need to empathize with Arjuna's situation. We can see how it's not easy. We all go through this not easy situations. But Arjuna's real problem is actually he knows he has to fight. So finally he blurts out his real situation. It's not that he doesn't want to kill Bhishma and Drona. Actually he's confused. He doesn't know what to do. See, unless you are really brutally honest, you don't get solutions. That's why I said acceptance. When you write, when you accept, that's when it begins. So Arjuna had to accept that he's confused. Because till now he was giving with certainty, I don't want to fight, I know what to do. And now let's see what he says in text 6. Na chetad vidma kataranno gariyo Yadva jayema yadivano jayeyu Yaneva hatva na jijivishamas Tevastita pramuke dhartarashtra
Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield.
So I don't know what to do. It requires a lot of humility to say, I don't know. This world glorifies clarity. Ambiguity is frowned upon. In Facebook you have like or dislike button. I've never used Facebook. But if I was using, I would prefer a button which says I like also and dislike also. It happens sometimes you like something, somebody, but you also don't like. Or you're not sure. You are never given choice for not being sure. You don't know. I don't know. So it's a weakness. It's seen as a weakness. But it's okay to not have clarity on everything. Maybe it's not okay, but at least you need to accept that you're confused. You don't have to artificially have clarity on everything. Because some things are revealed over a period of time. Like I'll tell you in my own spiritual practices. I've been 25 years in the ashram. And I'll be very honest with you. There are some things which don't make sense to me even now. Some things, when I came to the process, it immediately resonated with me. And I was like, wow, this makes sense. Some things took a lot of time. Now I'm fully convinced about it. It didn't make any sense to me in the initial days. Now I understand it and I accept it. And some things I think, till I die, I won't understand. It's like, when you fall in love with someone, some things immediately attract you about that person. And you are like, yeah, it makes sense. And you immediately connect with that person. Some things about that person you understand after some time. You're able to appreciate after some years. And some things you'll never understand. But still you love that person, right? So love is not that, oh, I like everything about you. Or I understand everything. No. Similarly, in spiritual practices, if you're an honest spiritual practitioner, you will say, I don't know, I'm confused. So Arjuna is now becoming qualified to hear the Gita because he is vulnerable. And did we read 7th verse? No. Now this is the most important. Let's chant the 7th verse. Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava Pruchhami tvam dharma samhuda cheta Yachreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam.
Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me.
Now Krishna is going to speak the Gita. He could have spoken the Gita right from the first verse of the 2nd chapter. But Arjuna was having a friendly... See, there are certain discussions you can't... certain truths can't be revealed in a friendly discussions. For certain things to be revealed, you need to surrender. You need to let go. And allow the universe to reveal to you. So that requires a lot of humility. And surrender is not something we Hare Krishnas are speaking about. You go to any spiritual path, they'll talk about surrender. Okay, you are not even into religion, forget it. You see any of Oprah Winfrey's shows where she talks to all these spiritual gurus, Mark Nepo, they're all not connected to any religion as such. They all talk about surrender. You talk to Buddhist preachers, you talk to the impersonalists. Surrender is a beautiful, beautiful experience. Unfortunately, when we hear the word surrender, the first thing we think is slavery, capitulation, defeat, humiliation, right? These are the things, these are the emotions that come to our mind. No, but in spiritual practices, surrender is a beautiful experience. And now Arjuna is like qualified. And we have to chant 8th and 9th also. They are very important verses. Please chant text number 8. Nahi prapashyami mamanupadyat Yachokamuchoshanamindriyanam Avapya bhuma vasapatnam riddham Rajyam suranam apichadipatyam.
I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying under my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unraveled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven.
And finally, that 9th verse reveals his situation. Sanjay Uvacha Evam Uktva Rishikesham Gudakesha Parantapa Nayotsaiti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Babuvaha.
Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent.
Now it's interesting, after all of this, when Arjuna is like finally surrendered, how does Krishna respond? 10th verse also we'll chant. Tamuvacha Rishikesha Prahasanniva Bharata Senayorubhayor madhye Vishidantam idam vacha.
O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to grief-stricken Arjuna.
So Prahasan, Arjuna is crying, and what is Krishna? Prahasan is smiling. Krishna is like, oh, what a scene that must be in the battle, on the battlefield. So this section we see Arjuna has made all the analysis and finally is given up. Nahi ho raha hai. Have you gone through this? Your system hanging? Pura overthinking. I think overthinking is a bigger addiction than most of the other addictions that you can constantly thinking. But we need to understand we are small, but our mind is huge. Mind has unlimited capacity to moan, grumble. Many of us are in this illusion. We think, I just want to be happy, Prabhu. I just looking for happiness. No, I don't want to disappoint you. But your mind is not simply seeking happiness. Your mind relishes being miserable also. It just enjoys that taste. Sorry to disappoint you. Like a camel tastes the blood when it starts eating thorns. And its own blood it tastes. But it enjoys it. It's painful also. But usko maza bhi aata hai. So similarly, we are mind worshippers. We just follow what the mind says. And mind has unlimited capacity to desire something, and when you get that, the same mind will tell you, why did you take it? So mind is incorrigible. And the solution for that is give up thinking and consult someone who is having an aerial view towards your situation. When you're on a helicopter, when the army is fighting the enemy, they may celebrate having defeated the enemy, but they have no idea that the enemy may come from another side. But if you're on a helicopter, you know what is happening in the battlefield. Similarly, we are fighting our battles in life on the battlefield. Everyday problems, challenges, EMIs, relationships. But if somebody has a helicopter vision, he can tell you, no, Prabhu, there is something more, or it's not so serious. You have sometimes when our situations can be so overwhelming, we forget to see the bigger picture. If you take a 10 rupee coin, just take the 10 rupee coin and keep it close to your eyes on a hot afternoon, midday sun. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, take that 10 rupee coin and put it close to your eyes and look at the sun. You will see that your vision of the sun is blocked because of that 10 rupee coin. If it's too close to the eyes, have you ever experienced that? Keep the coin too close to your eyes, it can block the vision of the sun. But what is the size of the coin in comparison to the sun? But because it is too close to the eyes, we can't see the sun. Similarly, many of our issues sometimes they are so overwhelming, and we kept it so close to our consciousness that we can't see the bigger, more beautiful picture and beautiful reality. We just get carried away. And that's all because we are always into inductive reasoning. I need to figure this out, then this solution, then I'll be happy. But there is also something called as deductive. Accept the truth, accept the reality from a higher source, and then let things fall in place. We want to climb the ladder. Sometimes it's better to come down. We think if I do this, then I will have this, and then I will be happy. Just look at the cycle. Doing, having, do, have, and then be happy. But spiritual practices, we in ISKCON offer you a different paradigm. Be happy. B-E. Then in that state, you do something. And then you have. It's very different paradigm. We are wired to think I have to do to be happy. But our proposal is be and then do. So chanting, meditation, journaling, this is all to come to a stage of be, where you are in a state of balance. So, and it's a great help to have a guru, an external help, who is basically someone who helps us to connect to our Chaitya Guru, because we have a guru within. The external guru is not someone who's having a cult, he's having a big following and who's just taking money from him. That's not the whole idea. The idea is, he is a guru if he helps you to connect to your Chaitya Guru, because you have the Lord directing you from the heart. And we need this because, as Albert Einstein said, we can't solve the problems. I don't remember the exact quote, but something to the effect that if we have created problems at a certain level of thinking, we can't solve those problems at the same level of thinking. We need we need something different. We need a different paradigm. And that's the job of a guru. So, and we have gurus in all fields. I know Bharatanatyam My nieces are learning Bharatanatyam, they have a guru. I know somebody learning karate, he has a guru. Everybody has a guru. In business, there are business gurus. Our Gaur Gopal Prabhu is called as Guru Gopal Das. He's Guruji, everybody calls him Guruji. And even a truck driver, even this, if you go to these villages of India, you go to the highways, you will see these big trucks carrying a lot of transport through state borders. They'll have these small boys serving the master truck driver, humbly getting chai for him, cleaning the truck. After so many years of humbly serving the guru, then that fellow tells him, okay, now you can touch the steering wheel. You've seen all those kids doing all the menial work. Guru ke under seekhna padta hai. I've been in the kitchen in our temple. We cook for 300 people every day, morning, lunch. So first 6 months, kitchen में चूल्हे को छूने का नहीं. Pot washing, चपाती भेलो. एक दिन तवे पे बैठने दे बस. वो तड़का में देखने नहीं देगा वो. He'll tell me, he's about to put tadka, he'll say, get that. And I want to learn the tricks, but he won't let me learn. He wants to test my sincerity, So everywhere there is this concept of guru. And the whole Upanishads, Vedic scripture, the Vedic life is all about learning from the Upanishads, 108 principal Upanishads. The word Upanishads means learning at the feet of a guru. Unfortunately, what happened is, we've had some unfortunate incidents where Guru has abused his position of power, and then because of that we then generalize everyone as frauds. That's not the way it is. Just because you've met a quack doesn't mean there are no good doctors. So there is something called a reasonable faith and there is something called as blind faith. So you need to have reasonable faith, and you need to know the credentials of the doctor and then go to him. Because our mind, you can't solve your problems because the mind is causing the problems. You can't solve it with your intelligence because intelligence is subtler than mind, but there is something more subtler than intelligence. You know what is that? Now, this is very important. I have to share this with you. This is called ego. Now this, I don't think anybody teaches us this in college. There is an interesting dynamics within us. Ego, mind and intelligence. Okay. Ego is the mafia don. He is the unseen. The actual don, actual mafia boss is not seen. So ego is the unseen boss. So now, first of all, please understand we are entering your inside world. Like you are entering that platform 9 3/4 and entering that, what is that? I was at King's Cross station last week and I wanted to see that, but we were rushing. We were getting late for a train we had to take to Paris, so I couldn't go. But I'm curious to see that they have put that memorial there for that. So then you enter that Hogwarts School of Magic, and then there is this train that takes you there. Harry Potter captured the imagination of the world in a way that nobody else had ever done in the past. So there are two worlds, the world of the Muggles and the world of the wizards. Similarly, there's a world inside of us, and that's a completely different world. Just like in the wizards world, there is Olympics, there is police force, there is banking system. Right? Harry Potter is revealing to a completely different world. Similarly, the inside world is totally different. There are different laws there. And one of the first lessons in the inside world is to learn who controls our inner world. Please know it is the main boss of this underworld gang is the ego. You know what the ego does? The ego simply issues a diktat. I want to be the enjoyer. I am the controller. That's it. That's a diktat issued by the ego. The ego has two bodyguards standing right next to the ego, who are the faithful servants of the ego. And the first servant of the ego is called mind. Mind has a simple job. Accept, reject. Accept, reject. What is the diktat issued by the ego? I am the enjoyer. And the mind is faithfully standing. So then somebody comes to you and says, wow, you're so good. You give such a nice discourse. You're so intelligent. Prabhuji, I liked your class so much. So what does the mind do? Accept him or reject him? Why? Because the ego's order is being followed. I am the enjoyer. So this person has confirmed I am the best, I am the controller, I am the great. So mind immediately accepts. And there's another servant of the ego That's called intelligence. Intelligence job is to provide reasoning, argument, logic for what the mind has done. So intelligence will immediately say, yes, very good, you have accepted him because this person is a yoga teacher. He's from IIT Bombay. He's educated, intelligent person, so he has understood your glories. So this is the reasoning. Reasoning part is by the intelligence. So life goes on happily. And tomorrow you discover that this person who appreciated you has put on his social media some very nasty comment about you. The same person, the next day. And then what will the mind do immediately? Reject. And what will the intelligence say? He's from IIT Bombay. IIT is one of the best educational institutes. They produce the best engineers who are also extremely arrogant. With high knowledge comes high pride. He has a massive ego. Intelligence is providing all these arguments. So have you experienced sometimes that you like someone and the very next day you may have very strong contrary opinions about that person? This game is being played inside in our inner world and we are never able to catch ego. The mind and intelligence are creating havoc in our inner system. And so we are fighting with the mind, with our intelligence, but intelligence is not as subtle as the ego. Ego is more subtler. So we can't catch our intelligence with our we can't catch our ego. We can't conquer over our ego through our intelligence. We need something even more subtler than the ego, which is a cosmic intelligence, which is a higher intelligence, which is an intelligence beyond ourselves, which is called as a cosmic consciousness, or if you are a Star Wars follower, you will call it the Force. So there is something higher, something superior to us. And those who are sincere spiritual practitioners, they connect to that cosmic intelligence. When we read scriptures, when we read Bhagavad Gita, that intelligence is being accessed. So therefore, this is how we access a higher intelligence, and that intelligence purifies our material intelligence and our mind, and it helps us conquer over our ego. And that's what Krishna is going to do now. It appears as if Krishna is going to take care of Arjuna's crying mind, but is actually taking care of the false ego. Because Arjuna finally tells Krishna, Krishna, I accept my position as a servant. See, ultimately we are all servants. We don't like to admit it. The ego can be conquered only when we take the position of a servant. The Prime Minister of the country claims to be a servant of the nation. You will be a servant of your family. We all are serving all the time. You keep a pet, you serve the pet. I met a non-spiritual practitioner, a non-spiritualist when I was in New Mayapur, which is 4 hours away from Paris. And one British tourist had come with his family. And he just came to see that castle, and I was spending time with him. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a teacher in London. I've come on a holiday. I said, what do you teach? He's not a spiritual Hare Krishna. He's just an ordinary school teacher in London, a British man. I just asked him, what do you teach? He said, externally I'm teaching maths and geography, but I'm working on teaching all my students to be a servant. And I also want to evolve as a servant. I was like, wow, he's speaking Bhagavad Gita. I said, would you like to elaborate, please? He said, the Prime Minister of our country is a servant. Everybody is serving. So only when we serve, we evolve. I was so impressed, I realized you don't have to be a Bhagavad Gita student to realize this. The principle of happiness is to be a servant. And that's the best way to take care of the ego. So this is the whole process. This is how the education of Arjuna would begin now, from text number 11 onwards. But I'll pause here. It's nearing 7:30. We'll take a couple of questions now. We have time. We have time. So we'll take a few questions and then we'll have little Kirtan and then we'll wind up. So I'll pause here because now comes the most interesting part. From text number 11, we will see Krishna is going to actually give the knowledge because Arjuna has surrendered. Now Arjuna is receptive. So, but before what Krishna is going to speak, if there are any questions or discussions till this point of time, we can take it up now. Hare Krishna. Please, comment.
You said that about Guru, right? So I have seen a video of Sadhguru. So the lady, she was asking Sadhguru, "Ke, why do we need Guru?" So Sadhguru answered her as, "Ke, when you drive somewhere."
GPS.
GPS, yes.
It's a Guru positioning system or
Correct,
something.
correct.
I've seen that video also.
So when you drive to a location, you on your GPS. So the GPS guides you there.
He gives very clever answers, smart.
Likely when you drive to an unknown terrain, I mean, inside our spiritual journey. So you need someone as Guru positioning systems.
Yeah.
So he'll guide you towards the journey.
That's a brilliant. I remember seeing that video. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
One question, maybe a lame question. How do we find a guru?
Yeah. I knew that. I was hoping that will come. What is that? Seek and what? I forget that beautiful quote. Seek and you shall find. Yeah, it begins with a sincere aspiration. Aspiration, if you can. There was a man who went. There's a story in the Upanishads actually. A man who went to a guru and said, I want to learn spiritual knowledge. So he said, you come later, come after a few months. He came after a few months and he said, can you please teach me? I want to be a student. He said, come after a few months. So he kept driving him away like that. And finally this man got fed up. He said, why don't you accept me as your disciple? I want to learn from you. He said, really? Come with me. So that guru took him to the river and they stood in the middle of the river and he told him, take a dip in the river. As soon as he took a dip in the river, the guru put his hand on his head and pressed it hard. So this man was inside the water and he was suffocating. Oh. And just when he was about to die or about to give up his, he couldn't control his breath, just last minute, the guru pulled him out. And he was like, ah. So the guru said, how desperate were you for air to breathe? He said, when you are as desperate for a guru, I'll be there for you. That's a very dramatic way of teaching him the importance of. See what happens, many of us in this, in our spiritual quest, we look for a guru to make our material lives comfortable. Sorry to say that. Like, I want to do better business. See, we live in this world. So if you see, even when we are looking for guru, we are looking, have you seen this? Oh, I find today's class very practical. We find certain things, certain spiritual teachers very practical. You ask yourself, why you find it practical? Because that addresses your present day life situations. It addresses your day-to-day challenges. That's why we find that teacher very practical. But real spiritual life begins when you want to enter, not just be in your eye space, but also in the space of the universe. You want to know not just answers for your day-to-day questions, you also want to know what are the big questions, what are the big answers. You want to rise beyond yourself. So if you are willing to search, seek something higher than yourself, you will find a guru. But if you're only looking for making your material life comfortable, also you will find a guru, but you won't be able to get the best benefit out of that guru as much as you would get if you are seeking something higher. I'll give a small concept. This can be a life-changing concept. This is called ladder of abstraction. How many of you have heard of this term? You heard of this? Oh. This is a life-changing concept. Imagine a ladder, okay? Now, if you are a spiritual seeker, you should know this ladder of abstraction. Abstract means, you know what is abstract? Abstract matlab vague, clear nahi hai. So, at the top of the ladder is a very vague concept. You've seen spiritualists say, if you ask a very deeply realized person, is sitting silently, you ask him, what is the goal of life? He'll say, goal of life is love. Love is divinity. Divinity is peace. Peace is divine. And he'll speak all namby-pamby, as a word jugglery, you won't understand anything, and you'll like, wow. I remember one spiritual teacher, I was on a quest when I was a young teenager, I was going to different places. And I remember in one place, we were waiting for 3 hours for the Guru to come. And after 3 hours he comes, and we were like, I was thinking he's going to say something divine. And he sits there, and he looks at everyone with deep love and affection in his eyes. And I'm like, he's going to say something. We've been waiting for 3 hours. Abhi kuch to bolenge. Just for 10 minutes, he kept looking at each one with love. And then he closed his eyes and he shook his head and said, amazing, isn't it? The sound of silence. And then he got up and he left. And everybody's like, wow. And I'm like, what is this? But now I can look back. But now when I look back, I realize he was evolved. He was on the top of the ladder of abstraction. Remember, imagine a ladder. What is the top of the ladder? Abstract, vague. So you can't understand all of that. That's why I'll tell you why many people are put off from spiritual practices. Because they see the spiritual teachers are at the top of the ladder of abstraction. They are always talking about all these big things and we can't understand. Arey, mera ghar pe problem chal raha hai. चंद सिर फिरे हैं खुदा की तलाश में. One poet has said, चंद सिर फिरे हैं खुदा की तलाश में, बाकी सब तो दाल रोटी की जुगाड़ में. So they find it, what is all this, spiritual, all that, क्या क्या बड़ा बड़ा चीज बोल रहे हैं आप, सब बॉन्सर जा रहा है. So we want to have nothing to do with spiritual life because some teachers are stuck at the top of the ladder of abstraction. But there are some smart teachers like Gaur Gopal Das, Jai Shetty. They are able to come to the bottom of the ladder of abstraction and deal with something very specific in our lives. So at the bottom of the ladder is something very specific, something very tangible, calculatable, quantifiable, understandable. Okay, I'll give an example. The word vehicle, V-E-H-I-C-L-E, vehicle, is this an abstract word or a very specific word? Specific? Abstract. Because what is a vehicle? A car can be a vehicle, even a holy name, Hare Krishna, can be a vehicle. Right? So if somebody keeps speaking about vehicle, he just speaks about the verb vehicle. A noun, it's a noun. It's abstract. So word vehicle, which at the ladder of abstraction, where is it? Top. If I say car, it's come below. It's in the middle of the ladder of abstraction. If I say red colored Hyundai Santro, that's at the bottom of the ladder of abstraction. Are you getting it? So humility, gratitude, these are all abstract at the top of the ladder. If you attended my last 2 classes, I gave a gratitude exercise where I gave an exercise of why gratitude. That's like trying to help you be at the bottom of the ladder of abstraction and then slowly go up and understand gratitude in its more abstract terms. So most of us are stuck at the bottom of the ladder of abstraction. And when we come to spiritual path, we expect the teacher to be at the bottom also. And the teachers are very kind to us. They come at the bottom of the ladder and they help us, but they also want us to. Because the ideal situation is not at the bottom or at the top. What is the ideal situation? To be able to go up and down. To be able to understand, I need something specific here, but I also need, sometimes you need to understand, ye mere upar hai. Like Arjuna had to understand that. I have to surrender and I have to rise in the ladder of abstraction. So ask yourself where you should be in this ladder now. Are you getting it? In every situation, like for example, I was in last few years back, I was to travel with Gaur Gopal Prabhu. So we used to, at Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is our headquarters in UK. So we went to one person's house for lunch. So that person there, the host, he was a monk for many years. He's a brahmachari. And now he had got married and he had settled down as a grahastha. So then we were talking to his wife and his family. So I said, how did you get married to him? And then she said, when we were seeing each other and we were about to get married and we used to meet and I used to tell him, and whenever we used to meet, he used to say, okay, today I want to discuss 3 things with you. 1, 2, 3. Every day he had an agenda. And I would tell him, why don't we just be? Why don't we just talk? But he was always talking about 1, 2, 3. Today, aaj meko 4 kaam karna hai, 2 kaam karna hai. Because he was a manager in the ashram for many years. So he was always stuck at the bottom of the ladder of abstraction. So in a relationship also, he was always stuck there. And she was like frustrated. Why doesn't he appreciate? Why isn't he, more loving, romantic, appreciable, finer nuances of life? Kuch hai hi nahi uska, kuch. Very gross. Stuck at the bottom of the ladder of abstractions. We were laughing. Next day, what a coincidence, we went to another devotee's house, who was also a monk for many years. And when we were asking Mataji, the lady, when did you get married? And she said, when we got married, it was so difficult. And I would tell him, we have to do this and we have to get a new house. And he would say, Krishna will take care. And then immediately I understood, ye kidhar atka hai? So some of us are stuck at the top, some of us are stuck at the bottom. So maturity in spiritual practices means to know how to go up and down. So to seek a guru, you need to change gear. Like, I'll just give an example. The word food. Food is where at the top of the ladder of abstraction? Top or bottom? Top. If I say wheat, bajra, that's like middle of the ladder of abstraction. If I say bajre ki roti with ghee on top and turiya sabzi, something like that, and you are at the bottom of the ladder of abstraction. So I have seen all the time this works in most of the concepts in life. So if you really want a guru, learn to move up in the ladder of abstraction. Start asking deeper questions. Like, what is the goal of life? Why there is death and suffering? Why bad things happen to good people? Does God really exist? If God exists, why there are so many different religions? Who really am I? थोड़ा ये tough questions पूछना शुरू करो, and then Guru will appear. Guru will manifest. Is that okay? Does that answer your question?
Just to add on to the point that you said, one of my teachers beautifully explained this. Like, he used to say that you have to change your duties. Basically, when you say, so if you're, like, suppose if I'm a teacher, so when I'm teaching, I'm a teacher. So if I'm attending a class, I'm a student. If I'm with if I'm married, I have a wife, so I'm a husband. If I'm with my kids, I am a parent. So we have to keep changing our duties wherever we go. Like, you cannot be a teacher with your wife.
Exactly. Actually, at the end of the second chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna that we have many duties to perform. We have many roles, and in each role we have many goals. We can get confused. So then he speaks about how we need to have one thing common which is going to bind all the goals and all the roles. And that's God or Krishna or universe or connecting to a higher self. And that will help you perform all your roles in all your goals in all your roles with peace of mind. Otherwise you'll get confused, because always you'll see the goals will conflict because your roles will conflict. So we need something common also, something binding also. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Why did Krishna summarize first and then explain in detail?
Because he knows, in 21st century we are very restless. We want stimulation and we look for quick fixes. We want immediate answers. That's a good teacher, right? The teacher will, like, I know one of my very dear friends, when he gives classes, he says, today I'm going to speak 3 things, 1, 2, 3. And then he explains systematically. So, systematic presentations. To be honest, I don't think Krishna actually explains it like that. It's the commentators of Gita who have taken out and realized that it's an entire summary of the Gita in the second chapter. So all these connections between the verses is all the experts and the commentators. Krishna and Arjuna simply had a dialogue, discussion for 1.5 hours. It was a spontaneous talk. Krishna didn't memorize the previous night. Arey, kal Gita bolna hai. Yaad karna. There are scholars who spend their whole lifetime, reading the Gita, understanding. For Krishna, it was casual, just. Is that okay? We'll stop. Yes, I see 2 hands, and then, your question, and then, Mataji.
How to surrender?
Yeah. It's a long topic, but I'll just briefly summarize. There are 3 stages in our life: stimulation, struggle, and surrender. First we go through stimulation. We like to be stimulated always, excited. Sense gratification, like we gratify our senses. That is one level. The next is struggle. And third is surrender. So from struggle to surrender, the journey happens when we let go. I'll give an example. This chariot with driven by 5 horses. So this is the analogy Krishna also gives in the Gita. So the sense gratification stage, stimulation stage, is when you're in the chariot as a passenger and the horses are running wild. You have no control. You are just sleeping in the chariot. Which means your mind and senses are going wild. You're just doing what the mind and senses tell you. That's where a lot of people in this world are living in. That is the stage of sense gratification. Then you wake up. You come to Hare Krishna. You read the Gita. Then you enter the second stage, which is struggle, where you take charge of the chariot. I want to control the horses. I want to go there. Okay? That's the struggle stage. But surrender happens. Listen to this carefully. When you drive the chariot, after some time you realize, this is tough. I can't do it. I can't struggle a whole life. What do I do now? What do I do now? I can't do this. Let me give it up and go back to sleep in the chariot. Then you go back to sense gratification. Getting it? But surrender is when you're struggling, but you give up, but you look up. Krishna, take charge of this chariot. Like Draupadi raised her hands and she said, Krishna, save me. I can't do this. And then you see miraculously the chariot is driven. Somebody has taken charge of the chariot. But be careful. The third stage is very similar to the first one. That's why, people who are at the stage of sense gratification, they can think, I am surrendered to God. And their mind is driving them. Manoratena satidhavato bahi, Gita says. They are driving the chariot of the mind and they are thinking they are spiritualist. So therefore, struggle is very important. So struggle means discipline is very important. You need to practice a process. And then after practicing, chanting, doing the discipline in spiritual practices, then you realize, it's not as easy as I thought. And then the surrender happens. So the first step of surrender is to first actually have a disciplined path. A struggle where you follow a process. Where you just like, if you are learning yoga, you have a discipline. You do 1 Surya Namaskar, then you do 20, then you do Tadasana, then you do Bhujangasana, you do all of those things. And then you become, naturally the yoga flows. You do it and then you let go. Sometimes I know one yoga teacher in Pune who would be on one asana for hours. He just entered that flow state, That's like surrender in spiritual practice. But that surrender happens first with a disciplined path. So the chariot analogy is the way I explain this. Is that okay? So how does it happen? When does it happen? You need to trust the universe for that. But you need to follow a path where you need to struggle first. And then how do you let go? It's like asking, it's a very, very personal question. How does it happen? How do you do it? You do it. You do it. It's like, it's your journey. You do it by doing it.
It just comes.
But provided you are following the process. It just won't happen if you are just at the first stage. You have to come to the second stage for the third stage to happen. It's like, you are on the ground floor and surrender is second floor. So there are stairs to climb to the first floor. But from first floor to second floor, there is no lift, there is no steps. Somebody from the second floor has to lift you. But he won't lift you from the ground floor. You can't say, I'm here and now lift me. Surrender is a gift that the universe gives you. But for that you have to receive it. You don't achieve it. You can't figure it out. I'm going to surrender like this. But essentially at our level, surrender is struggle, which means basically anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varjanam. Accepting what is favorable for your spiritual practices, that is surrender. And rejecting what is unfavorable for your spiritual practices, that is surrender. That's why I said a disciplined path is important to begin with. And then when you are sincerely doing it, you will see you are being lifted. Is that okay? Before I take your question, one last point I want to say on this. Okay, you are driving a car in the highway, Mumbai to Pune, and your car breaks down. And then, let's say, I mean, you won't do this, but arey, car breakdown ho gaya, and you get upset and you get drunk and you abuse someone and then you go to sleep. That's like the lowest stage. The second stage is you call up immediately someone and you get help and you get it repaired or whatever. That is second stage. But we as spiritual practitioners, what we do is, we are at the second stage, but as we are seeking help, we also remember Krishna. We remember God. So I'm calling up someone, Krishna, please help, Krishna, let this man pick up the phone. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. It's all the time Krishna, Krishna. That's called at the stage of struggle. We're all struggling, but we add struggle plus remembering God. Do you get it? There is sense gratification or frustration, stimulation, that's lowest stage. Then we come to struggle plus remember. Then comes the third stage, which is surrender, where you only remember, where you don't struggle. Which is like your car is broken down in the highway, you know what to do. You can struggle and remember. But imagine you're in an airplane and the pilot announces, ladies and gentlemen, the engines have failed. So now our plane is going to jump into a conclusion. So, all the best. So whom will you call that time? You can't struggle there, right? That's surrender. So, Krishna, universe, trust the universe to put you in that situation. So when Draupadi was called to the assembly, what is the first thing she did when she was lost in the gambling match? First thing, she remembered Krishna. But she also negotiated with Bhishma, Drona. She was arguing, the series of arguments she presents. But she was doing both. Basically, she was like a person who stuck with her car in the highway. But when Dushasana started pulling her sari, she realized, oh, I'm in an airplane. Now I can't really do anything. Are you getting it? So, how exactly do you move from struggle? If you're in the struggle plus remembering zone, then the Lord will drag you into the surrender zone. He will orchestrate events in your life where you will be taken there. But you need to add the element of remembering the Lord. I hope I am clear. This is a few case studies I've given you. In fact, my next book, The Heart Space, is all about this. The third section is, first is what is heart space, second is why is heart space. Both of them are just 5,000 words. But 35,000 words is all about how to live in the heart space, which is basically how to surrender. So there I've described all of this in 4 quadrants and explained the systematic process. So after your question, I'm getting more excited to work on my book. Thank you. And we'll take the last question. And yeah, yes, your question.
In the beginning, you said that Yudhishthira took the blessings of his
Bhishma
on
and
the other side out of humility. But what is, I mean, those who have wronged you, do they still stand in that position where you need their blessings?
It's a good question. But Krishna used to be very irritated with Yudhishthira because of this. The last stage of the war, when Duryodhana went into hiding, Duryodhana was hiding under a lake because he was so disgusted. And finally, the whole Pandavas were searching for Duryodhana. And finally, they found out he was hiding in a lake. They pulled him out. And that is the time when Krishna was ready to tell the Pandavas to kill Duryodhana. And to the shock of Krishna, what did Yudhishthira Maharaj do? He told Duryodhana, we give you a chance for a fair fight. You can pick up any one of us and have a fight. And whoever wins, they are the victors. So if you win, the kingdom is yours. So he could have easily picked up Nakul or Sahadev. But to Duryodhana's credit, he asked to fight with Bhima. So when Yudhishthira gave this proposal, Krishna was like, crazy, you're going crazy. What are you doing? Pura pani dal diya mere mehnat pe. So yeah, Yudhishthira was like that. That's why but that is Yudhishthira's greatness, humility. But in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, I trust Krishna more because that is dharma. So that is his duty. That's why dharma has to be accompanied by Bhima and Arjuna. There has to be valor. There has to be wealth and power. You can't simply be dharma centered. See, Yudhishthira is good because there was Bhima and Arjuna next to him. If Yudhishthira was single, alone, then it would be disastrous. So that's why, many times I have strong difference of opinion with Gandhi's understanding of non-violence. Because Gandhi's non-violence is great for personal practice. But at the national level, when you bring the principle of non-violence, it can have disastrous consequences. Like some of the letters he wrote to Winston Churchill to allow Hitler to come and destroy England and allow your surrender and capitulation to move the heart of Hitler. That's understanding of Yudhishthira's principles in an extremely perverted way. So we need Subhash Chandra Bose also. So Gandhi would go on a fast unto death. When he would threaten to fast unto death when his demands were not met. But when Jinnah wanted Pakistan, Gandhi didn't go on fast unto death because he knew that Jinnah won't listen to him. So that was like emotional blackmail. So this non-violence dharma principle can be easily misunderstood. So Yudhishthir is great, but there has to be wealth and power. Bhima represents power and Arjuna represents wealth because he won a lot of wealth. But we need a balance. So Yudhishthir is also needed. That's why in war, Indian army has amazing values. They follow the principle of Yudhishthir also. During the Kargil war, Pakistan soldiers, they died in larger numbers, but they wanted to declare that they won the war, so they refused to accept the dead bodies of their warriors. So then Indian army performed the final rites of the Pakistani warriors, and they flew Maulvis from Delhi to Kargil, and they honored them. I mean, they performed their final rites with military honors. And they sent a letter to the Pakistan government saying that these 7-8 people, they fought very bravely from your side. You need to give them your equivalent of Paramvir Chakra. Because they simply represented, they just were instruments in the war. There's nothing personal against them. This is what Pakistan army did was a Ravana mentality, wherein even Ravana in his war in the Lanka war, he refused to, when his soldiers died, he would just throw away all the Rakshasas into the ocean. For him, the soldiers were resources. But Ram kept the soldiers, the Vanaras, and then when Hanuman brought the mountain, and then the fragrance of those Sanjeevani helped revive all the monkey soldiers who had died. But Ravana's army couldn't get the help. For him, the soldiers were simply resources. So similarly, those who are against dharma, like Duryodhan and Ravana, for them, people are resources to be used. Yudhishthir represents the principle of empathy, compassion, justice, but accompanied by Bhima, Arjuna, and most importantly, Krishna. One needs to be... See, I say like this. For personal level, we need to love Krishna of Vrindavan. At a duty level, you need to love Krishna of Dwarka. Giving charity, performing your duties. Krishna gave charity, Krishna did his duties. At the national level, you need Krishna of Kurukshetra. That's why when Modi came to our temple many years ago, when he was the CM of Gujarat, he came for the Janmashtami festival. And he said, आप सब कृष्ण को मानते हैं, कृष्ण के भक्त हैं, हम भी कृष्ण के भक्त हैं. पर अंतर यह है कि आप वृंदावन कृष्ण, बांसुरी बजाने वाले कृष्ण को, कृष्ण की उपासना करते हैं. हम कुरुक्षेत्र के कृष्ण को मानते हैं. So like that. The dharma, अगर दुश्मन समझाने से समझ जाता, अगर दुश्मन समझाने से समझ जाता, तो बांसुरी बजाने वाला कभी महाभारत युद्ध नहीं होने देता. है ना? So we need action also. We need. So thank you once again very much. Hare Krishna. We'll chant once. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.